everyone, welcome to my channel. So if you are new to this channel but you have been following the content, kindly like, subscribe and share for more so that you don't miss out any of these important contents. So here today we are going to be looking at the midpoint, the distance of a straight line, and the gradient. So coordinate geometry, we are just going to be looking at lines, how the line will be able to produce a straight line, the distance and all that. But for this video we are just going to look at the midpoint, distance and the gradient. Then in another video we are going to continue from there. So what are some of the things that you need to know? So let's talk about formulas. So we have the midpoint. How do you know? How do you find the midpoint? So the midpoint, if let's say if I was to ask you the number between 1 and 3 is 2. How come? If you add 1 plus 3 is 4. If you divide 2, it will give you the number in between. So this is consistent. If you have 4, 5 and 6, the number between these is, if you add 4 and 6, you divide by 2, it will be 4 plus 6 is 10, divided by 2 is equal to 5. So this is the formula for the midpoint. So the midpoint is equal to, we are going to have x1 plus x2 over a 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over a 2. Now we are just introducing coordinate geometry in which we are going to be using the x and y coordinates. So that is how we find the midpoint. Let's look at the question. So find the midpoint of these. So how are you going to do it? So if you look at the midpoint, you're going to have the midpoint should be equal to, you're going to have your x1 plus your x2 over the y1, over the 2, comma, your y1 plus the y2 over the 2, like that. So if you have a line like that, you are looking for the midpoint, you are looking at the center. What are these coordinates? What is your x and y for the midpoint? So that is what we are looking at. So you add the x1 and the x2. So if we have the x2, y2 here, if you have your y1, your x1 comma y1, you are going to add them, x and x, you divide by 2, it will give you the midpoint, like that. So it's a very simple concept. So we have the midpoint. So the midpoint will be equal to, we have what is our x1. So our x1 in this case is, we have coordinates such as, let me write them here, it is 3 comma positive 4. Then we also have a 7, negative 7 comma 2, like that. So we are going to have our 3, x1 will be 3, so we are going to say 3 plus our x2 is negative 7, so we have negative 7 over a 2, like that, comma, the y1, remember the formula is y1 plus y2, so y1 is 4, so we are going to say 4 plus y2, which is a 2, then divided by 2. So that is the midpoint. So the midpoint will be 3, this by this it will be negative 7 over 2, comma, 4 plus 2 will be equal to 6. We divide it by 2, like that. Then finally we are going to get a value that is equivalent to 3 minus 4 is negative 7, negative 4, divided by a 2, comma, 3 divided by 6 divided by 2 is a 3. So finally the midpoint for this one will be equal to negative 2 comma positive 3. If you divide negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2, so negative 2 comma 3. So that is one type. The second type, where they can ask you the midpoint, is this type. Let's say we have been told if this is the midpoint of AB, where A is this, then we are required to find the coordinates of B. So to do that, we know that the midpoint of AB, so we have a straight line. Let me just draw it there. We have A, we have B. Then they have provided us with the midpoint coordinates, which are -2, 1, like that. They want us to find that we also have the coordinates of A, which are in -3, 2. We need to find these. So what are we going to do? So we are just going to use the midpoint formula, since they have provided us with that. So we have the midpoint is equal to x1 plus our x2 over 2, comma, we have our y1 plus our y2 over our 2, like that. So our midpoint of AB should be equal to, we have what is our x1. So our x1 is found to be, x1 is equal to, we have our x1, which is for A, which is our 3. Is it positive or negative? Anyways, it's okay like this. So we have 3, what have we written here? So positive 3. So we are going to say it will be 3 plus x2. We don't know, it is at B, so we don't know. Then over the 2, comma, for y1, it is the a coordinate of y, which is our 2. So we can say 2 plus our y2 over, we have our 2, like that. So with this done, the midpoint of AB, we have been provided that it's -2, 1. So we are going to write like that. So we have -2, 1 should be equal to, we have written our 3 plus x2 over 2, comma, we have 2 plus y2 over 2. So now if you look at this is the x coordinates, so that this be equal to another x coordinate. So we are going to say -2 should be equal to, because whatever you will get from here is the one that is producing this -2, so you equate them. So 2 should be equal to 3 plus x2 over 2, like that. From here you are going to cross multiply. 2 times -2, it will be -4 should be equal to 3 plus our x2, which will be, if you take this side, it will be -4 minus 3 should be equal to our x2, like that, which will give us a -7 should be equal to our x2, like that. So this is how you find the midpoint for that problem, or the value of your B for x. Then you are going to do the same. You are going to get this +1, equate it to that. So whatever you are going to get here is the one that is producing this one. So you are going to say 1 should be equal to, you are going to say 2 plus y2 over the 2, which will be you cross multiply. We are going to have 1 by 2, it will be 2 should be equal to 2 plus the y2. Then when you do that, we are going to have this 2 goes this side, we are going to have 2 minus 2, which will be equal to y2. This time y2 is equal to 0, like that. So this will be our y2. So we can be able to say that we have our x2 and y2. So that means to say B has coordinates at -7, which is your x coordinates, comma 0, like that. So that is how we find the answer under the midpoint. If we are required to find the distance now, distance between 2 points. So the distance between 2 points, remember this is a line and it's not starting at 0. So that means to say whatever x value is here, let's say for you to find the distance from 5 to 10, it is from 5 to 10. How do you find the distance from 5 to 10? If it was just a straight line like this, it is not a hypotenuse, it will be very easy in the sense that if this is 5, this is 10. So for you to move from here up to here, it means to say you will just have to cover a distance of 5 meters. How do you find that? By subtracting 10 minus 5. So which will give you 10 minus 5, it will give you 5. So it means to say for you to find the distance between 2 points that are not starting at 0, you subtract like that. So that means to say that's how we find the distance of a straight line. Now the pressure with coordinate geometry is this line already is an hypotenuse. You can be able to split it into the x component and the y component like that. So that means to say you will need to subtract the x and the y, then square them. So therefore the distance is given, distance is equal to the square root of our x2, because there are 2 of them. We have one x value at this point, so we have our x2 minus our x1. Remember, you have to subtract for you to find the distance between 2 points. Squared minus or plus, now you can add the x and the y, but you have to subtract them like that. Y2 minus y1, then you square them. So that is how you find the distance. Let's say we have been told to say find the distance between A and B. A has got 2, -3, and B has got -3, a +4. So how do you find this? We are going to say distance is equal to the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus our y2 minus y1 squared like that, so that we have the square root of our x2. X2 is equal to -3, so this is our x2, y2, y1, x1. So we are going to replace. So we have our x2 is -3 minus our x1 is 2, so we square it. Then we have plus our y2 is 4, so we are going to say 4 minus our y1 is 3, so we are going to say -3 like that. Then we square them. We are going to have the square root of our -3 minus 2 is -5 squared. Then we have plus our 4, this by this we are going to have plus our 3 like that. Then we are going to have the square like that. So this is going to be the square root of -5 squared. If it's in brackets, it will be +25. Then we have plus 4 plus 3, that will be a 7. So we have 7. We square it. This is going to give us the square root of 25 plus 7 squared is 49. So 49 plus 25 will give us a value of the square root of 25 plus 49. It will be equal to 74. So this is how we find the length like that. Let's move on to the gradient. So how do you find the gradient? So let's say find the gradient. So the gradient already is, if you have a line, it is the change in y, how far it is moving in the y direction. So this is the y, this is the x. So in other words, the gradient, the simpler way of finding the gradient is the change in y over the change in x. So how it is moving up in terms of y, how it is moving in this direction in terms of x. So the gradient should be equal to, what is our y coordinates? what is our x coordinate. So since it's a change, you can only find a change by subtracting. So you are going to say y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that is the gradient. So let's find the gradient between, let's say we have been told between negative 2, 7 and our 4, 5, like that. So to find the gradient, which is our m, should be equal to, we are going to say y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So this is our x1, y1, x2, y2. So we have our y2 is equal to 5 minus our y1 is equal to 7 over, we have our x2 is 4 minus x1 is equal to, open brackets, negative 2, like that. So this is going to give us 5 minus 7, we are going to have a negative 2, like that, over, we have 4, negative by negative is positive, so positive 2, like that. So we have negative 2 over 6, dividing these, we are going to have negative 1 over the 3, like that. So this will be our gradient in that form. So we have the gradient like that. So there are two ways of finding the gradient. If the angle is known, like for example, if you're looking at the equation y is equal to x, which is an equation that looks like this. So this equation cuts this line, just passes like that. So this is the equation of y should be equal to x. So this line cuts the 45 degrees, also here 45 degrees, like that. So if you want to find the gradient of this line, you're just going to say the gradient, if the angle is known, it is equal to the tan of theta. Why tan? Because already, if you recall, tan theta is equal to opposite over adjacent. But what is the opposite in terms of this? The opposite side is equal to the x coordinate. Then the one that is not the x, the opposite is the y in this case, since y is going up. So the opposite is y, the down is x. But this is the gradient, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This means to say you're looking at tan already, because tan is equal to opposite, which is tan of theta, is equal to the change in y over the change in x. So that's how come we have the gradients to be equal to tan of theta. Now for this line, it is 45, so we can find the gradients to be 45, which will be the value which will be tan of 45 degrees. So the tan of 45 degrees, this is a special angle, so we have the tan of 45 degrees is just equal to 1. So that's the gradient. You can verify it by taking some coordinates, like for example here this one is 0, 0. We can have another coordinate, y is equal to x. We'll have, if you draw a table of values, it will have, if x is equal to 1, y will be equal to 1. If x is equal to 2, y will be equal to 2. Let's take this. Let's say we take any of the two. We have 1, 1 and a 2, 2. You can find that the gradient, which will be equal to y2 minus y1 over the x2 minus x1. We are going to have, what is our y2? Our y2 will be 2 minus the y1, which will be 1, over x2, which is this 2, minus the x1, which is 1. So for any two coordinates you take like that, it will be 1 over 1, which will be your gradient. So your gradient will be equal to 1. So that is how you deal with that. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe to avoid missing out these powerful contents.